Section 1. A chilling prelude. Imagining the unthinkable. The prospect of a war between the United States and China is a chilling thought. It is a scenario that many hope will never come to pass, yet it remains a possibility that cannot be ignored. Such a conflict would not be confined to the borders of these two powerful nations. It represents not just a regional conflict, but a global catastrophe with far-reaching consequences that would ripple across continents. The integrated nature of the global economy means such a conflict would draw in numerous actors, escalating from a bilateral dispute to a global conflagration. The economic repercussions would be felt worldwide, affecting everything from trade to employment. The rivalry between the U.S. and China has intensified in recent years, fueled by trade disputes, technological competition, and geopolitical tensions. These issues have created a complex web of challenges that make diplomatic resolutions increasingly difficult. The most likely flashpoint for such a conflict is the Taiwan Strait. This narrow body of water has become a focal point of military posturing and strategic maneuvering. Any miscalculation in this volatile region could quickly escalate into a full-blown war. The presence of military vessels from both nations increases the risk of accidental engagements that could spiral out of control. Global supply chains, already strained by the COVID-19 pandemic, would be thrown into complete disarray. The disruption would affect the availability of essential goods, from electronics to pharmaceuticals, leading to shortages and increased prices. Financial markets would plunge into chaos, erasing trillions of dollars in wealth. The uncertainty and fear generated by such a conflict would lead to a massive sell-off, destabilizing economies around the world. It is therefore imperative that we explore all possible avenues for preventing such a catastrophic outcome. Diplomatic efforts, confidence-building measures, and international cooperation are essential to de-escalate tensions and foster a climate of peace. The stakes are too high for complacency. The international community must work together to address the underlying issues driving this rivalry. Through dialogue and mutual understanding, we can hope to avert the unthinkable and build a more stable and prosperous world. Imagining the unthinkable is a sobering exercise, but it also serves as a powerful reminder of what is at stake. It underscores the importance of proactive measures and the collective responsibility we all share in maintaining global peace and security. In the end, the goal is not just to avoid conflict, but to create a world where such conflicts are unthinkable, a world where cooperation and mutual respect prevail over rivalry and discord. This is the vision we must strive for, and it begins with each of us doing our part. Section 2, Hour 1, Flashpoint Taiwan, a chain reaction begins. The early hours of the conflict would be marked by a flurry of military activity in the Taiwan Strait. Chinese forces would launch a massive air and sea assault, targeting Taiwanese military installations and key infrastructure. The United States, committed by treaty to defend Taiwan, would be drawn into the conflict within hours. American warships and submarines would move to engage Chinese forces, while fighter jets would scramble to intercept Chinese aircraft. The U.S. would also activate its vast network of military satellites, providing real-time intelligence. The initial hours of the conflict would be chaotic and unpredictable. The fog of war, combined with the high stakes involved, would increase the risk of miscalculation and unintended escalation. The coming hours and days will determine whether this conflict can be contained or whether it will spiral out of control. Section 3, Day 1. Global markets tremble as conflict spreads. The outbreak of war between the U.S. and China sends shockwaves through the global economy. Stock markets around the world plunge into freefall as investors panic. The interconnectedness of the global financial system means that the economic fallout is felt immediately and acutely. Beyond the initial shock, the conflict begins to disrupt global trade on an unprecedented scale. China, the world's largest exporter, sees its factories idled as supply chains are disrupted. The U.S. faces shortages and price hikes. The conflict also disrupts energy markets, as China is a major importer of oil and gas. Alliances are tested, as countries around the world are forced to choose sides. The international community struggles to formulate a coherent response. Section 4, Week 1. Alliances tested. The world chooses sides. As the conflict enters its second week, the initial shock gives way to a new reality, a world divided. The U.S. rallies support from NATO members in Europe and key partners in Asia. China finds itself increasingly isolated with close ties to Russia. Some countries, particularly those in Southeast Asia, attempt to maintain neutrality. The conflict spills over into the cyber realm as both sides engage in sophisticated cyber attacks. The line between military and civilian targets becomes increasingly blurred. The conflict exacerbates existing tensions and conflicts around the world. 1 month into the conflict, the world is grappling with the harsh realities of a new global order defined by war and uncertainty. The initial economic shock has given way to a protracted recession. Inflation soars as the prices of essential goods skyrocket. Social unrest becomes increasingly common as citizens protest against rising costs of living. Governments resort to increasingly authoritarian measures to maintain order. The conflict triggers a massive refugee crisis as millions are displaced. Neighboring countries struggle to cope with the influx of refugees. The environmental consequences of the conflict are also becoming increasingly apparent. As the first anniversary of the conflict approaches, the world bears little resemblance to its pre-war state. The global order has given way to a multipolar system defined by shifting alliances and heightened tensions. The war has accelerated the shift in global power, with China emerging as a more assertive player. International institutions have proven largely ineffective in preventing or resolving the conflict. The war has also accelerated the erosion of democratic norms and values around the world. Governments have resorted to increasingly authoritarian measures to maintain order. The conflict has had a devastating impact on international cooperation. The breakdown of trust between the US and China has created a dangerous vacuum in global leadership. Even if the kinetic fighting were to cease, the world would be left grappling with the long shadow of the US-China war for decades to come. The geopolitical landscape would be permanently altered, with a new balance of power emerging. The economic repercussions would continue to reverberate. The war would leave an indelible mark on the social fabric of nations. The trauma of conflict would have long-lasting psychological and emotional impacts. The social divisions exacerbated by the war would continue to fester. The environmental consequences of the war would be felt for generations. The war would also have a profound impact on the future of warfare itself. Preventing Armageddon diplomatic channels and de-escalation. Given the catastrophic consequences of a full-blown US-China war, it is imperative that all avenues for preventing such a conflict be explored. Diplomacy remains the most viable option for averting disaster. Confidence-building measures can help to reduce the risk of miscalculation. Establishing crisis communication channels can help to prevent misunderstandings from spiraling out of control. Both sides should explore areas of common ground and mutual interest. International organizations, such as the United Nations, also have a crucial role to play in preventing conflict. Regional organizations can also play a constructive role in promoting dialogue and cooperation. The imperative of dialogue, finding common ground amidst tensions. Despite their differences, the US and China share a number of common interests that can serve as a foundation for dialogue and cooperation. Both countries have a vested interest in a stable global economy. Both countries also face common threats, such as climate change and pandemics. Enhancing people-to-people exchanges can help to foster greater understanding. Economic interdependence can serve as a powerful incentive for cooperation. By focusing on these shared interests, the US and China can begin to rebuild trust and reduce tensions. Towards a more stable future international cooperation and conflict resolution. The specter of a US-China war underscores the urgent need for a more robust and effective system of global governance. Strengthening international institutions, such as the United Nations, is essential for maintaining international peace and security. Promoting multilateralism and a rules-based international order is crucial for preventing conflict. The US and China have a particular responsibility to uphold the rules-based order. Investing in diplomacy, conflict prevention, and peace building is essential for creating a more peaceful and secure world. This includes supporting diplomatic efforts to resolve ongoing conflicts and providing humanitarian assistance. The responsibility of nations, a call for peace and understanding. The hypothetical scenario of a US-China war serves as a stark reminder of the fragility of peace and the devastating consequences of conflict. It is a call to action for all nations to prioritize diplomacy, cooperation, and the peaceful resolution of disputes. Leaders must resist the allure of nationalist rhetoric and the temptation to demonize other nations. Citizens must hold their leaders accountable for pursuing peaceful solutions. The path to a more peaceful and secure world will not be easy. But the alternative, a world consumed by conflict and chaos, is simply unacceptable. Let the hypothetical scenario of a US-China war serve as a wake-up call. The time for action is now. The fate of the world may very well depend on it.